So, I don't know if we're on time or not, I don't care, but we're Team Backcountry. It's like the most cliche name ever, right? I always say that, like, how'd you come up with that? Oh, well, we're a team of guys, and we hunt the backcountry. Get it? We've been doing this for a while, the backcountry thing, and frankly just love talking about it, so we begged these guys to let us do seminars, and eventually they said yes. And so we're not like some of the big names here that they're seeking out to do seminars. We're just guys that love talking about it, and we've been doing it long enough they agreed to it. So we don't have all the answers to anything really. This remote work?
I told them we didn't want it. So,
It can work. I can look it up real quick.
Sure. How many people like consider themselves like backcountry hunters, or yeah? How many people like just getting into it and you're here because like you don't know what you're doing yet? You? Okay, cool. That's good because it's like 50-50, which means there's a lot of people in here that probably know more than me, and then there's people here that are here to learn, and so that'll be a good mix because we'll try to do some question and answers and feed off of each other. That's why I passed out the gear list. Hopefully you just kind of skim through that while we're talking and something sparks your interest and you can ask a question or whatever. So, what else? Anything before we get started?
Did you tell them your name?
My name's Dustin. Yeah, I'm Dustin. I grew up down in Mesquite, Nevada, and didn't know the backcountry existed most of my life growing up. I mean, I understood that there was backcountry, but frankly, I didn't know that people hunted it. You know, that was a thing that you could pack in there with camp on your back and kill, you know, a mule deer, buck, or whatever, and come out, you know, out of the 10 miles deep out of the backcountry. And I think I was reading an article or something in Eastman's, maybe South Cox or Cameron Haynes type deal, maybe, you know, 10 or 15 years ago when this all started, and kind of sparked an interest. And then I found Cam Haynes' book, Backcountry Bow Hunting, and the cover, the original cover of that, if you remember, now it's a sheep, right? The collector's edition, he's got his picture of a sheep, but his original one was a mule deer. And I'll never forget the feeling that sparked in me, seeing that picture of Cam Haynes, and he clearly had camp on his back, and he's up, you know, looked like 10,000 feet, who knows how many miles deep in probably the Eagle Cap, and that was it. Like, I didn't know exactly what that was or how it happened or how people made that happen, because to me, hunting had always been, you know, in the camp trailer, wake up at, you know, 4:30 or whatever with a rifle, and drive a truck or a four-wheeler to the end of a road, hike for the day, you know, and we did plenty of hiking, but the thought of putting camp on our back and staying overnight up in the hills it wasn't a thing. Where we hunted my whole life growing up, you know, there was only a mile between roads, so it would have been pointless anyway. And so I saw that picture of Cam Haynes with that buck, and I read his book, and then I had to know what it was. And so I've been just looking for that experience ever since. And so that's all this is, Team Backcountry. We're nothing really. We're just a social media page. Now we run a podcast. That's funny, right? Like, he laughed because it's like, that's crazy nowadays. Like, we're a freaking social media page. Like, it's nuts, you know? Like, back in the day, you'd have a TV show. You'd be Jim Shockey type guys that would give seminars. Like,
Packing around big camp.
yeah, packing huge cameras. Now we take our iPhones, you know, and we post pictures. Matt's going to do a winter seminar on taking pictures with your iPhone. 5:30 tomorrow. Like, this whole world that we build, the fact that, you know, 30,000 people follow us and just love all it is just pictures we're posting on social media. It's crazy, I know, and I kind of grew up in this era, but anyway, so that's all we are. We're just passionate about it and we love it. The other thing on this, so last year when we did this, I stressed a ton about having like this picture perfect PowerPoint, right? I'm a businessman in my real life, and like I just wanted this dialed, like all this. You will see real quick, this is a white background with a couple bullet points. Most pages don't even have a picture on them. Because what I found last year, real quick, was it wasn't about this, it was about question and answers. And it just, we didn't even get through it. It didn't matter anyway how good it looked, because we didn't get through it. And so my goal is to get through this real quick, and then get like 30 solid minutes of Q&A, because I think that that's where we can do the most damage. Gear to take in your backcountry pack. It is hands down the most asked question that we get is something revolving around the gear that we pack in our pack. Why do we pack it? How much does it weigh? Why did you choose that? Why didn't you choose this? Have you looked at this? How does that tent work? Hands down, it's the number one question. Not how did your brother kill that 230-inch deer? It's, why are you wearing those boots? That type of stuff. It applies to everyone, right? Anyone that's looking to get into this. No doubt, that being said, no doubt that the best way to tell what gear is right for you isn't a seminar at the Hunt Expo. It's not. It's putting boots on the ground and figuring it out yourself. And that's tough to swallow, because you want like the quick, you want the shortcut sometimes, and sometimes you'll get it. Sometimes you'll talk to the right guy and you know that he hunts the way that you hunt, and he'll tell you like, hey man, don't waste your time with that, like you need to be wearing these boots, or you need to be using this backcountry food or whatever. But most of the time, because I've been asked this question before, and the answer ultimately is, well, my opinion's been formed on the mountain. So take what I'm going to tell you today with a grain of salt. I'm going to try not to get into like specific brands necessarily, just concepts and theories and principles of what you take and why. And then you can play around with different brands. You can ask, you're welcome to, you'll be able to tell who our partners are and what we use, and you can take that or not. It's a good place to start. The buyer beware thing. So this is, I think, twofold. I think that guys get, in this world, I think guys, in just the hunting world in general, I think guys get information from two places that can be very dangerous. One of those is your Uncle Frank, or whoever it is, that has been hunting for part of his life, and he recommends that you got to be wearing this pack. What I mean by that is make sure that if you're taking advice from Uncle Frank on a pack that you're going to take on a 10-day hunt and pack out a bull that's going to weigh 120 pounds, that Uncle Frank has killed a bull and packed a bull, 10 miles with 120 pounds in his back. Don't just take Uncle Frank's word for it. The other buyer beware, back to social media, is I'll be frank with you right now, there's a lot of people people are getting advice from guys just because they have a huge social media following, to be completely honest. Please look and evaluate how these guys are hunting. And I'm not even thinking of someone specific. You could probably think of people that you know, but just make sure that just because they're sponsored or they're a member of this brand or this company, or that they have how many millions of followers or whatever, are they actually hunting the way that you're planning on hunting? Are they doing it on public land, in the backcountry of Colorado, going 10 miles deep, figuring out the logistics of packing it out themselves? Or do they have a crew of 4 guys behind the scenes that, or are they getting packed in on horses or whatever? Just be aware of that, because it's becoming a thing now, because we live and breathe with social media nowadays, whether you like that or not. That's kind of the heartbeat of the world now. And so just take that with a grain of salt. That's all. Let's jump right into it. Corey, one of my other brothers, we're not really related, but we kind of look alike.
Different moms and different dads.
Yeah, different mom and different dad brothers. But I'm going to let him dive through. We'll just touch briefly on all these, and we'll kind of roll through them. And like I said, we're probably already going way too fast, or way too slow. Perfect, 5 minutes.
We might have to stop you and ask some questions as you're flying through.
Interject at any point. We're going to try to leave room at the end. We'll probably blow through it, but if something here, sleep systems, raise your hand, and we do the Mark Smith system, we call it, where we just kind of give you stuff for asking questions. And then we've got some bigger stuff that we'll, we've talked to our partners, and we got some bigger stuff that we'll kind of talk to you about at the end of how you can get entered to win some of that stuff.
Yeah, And so if you're going through asking questions, all this stuff up here, come choose. We have a couple different sizes of shirts. Yeah, we want questions the whole way through. So my name's Corey. I moved out about 5 years ago out to the west. Grew up hunting whitetail in Iowa. Learned really quick how steep the learning curve is to actually get it done in the backcountry. I was fortunate to jump in with the Whitwer brothers, and they've taught me a lot along the way. So been a gear junkie all my life, in a couple different facets, but hunting gear out west specifically. I come from a world where I didn't know what a thermarest was 5 years ago, or a jet boil, or that you weren't supposed to bring a whole roll of duct tape into the backcountry. So
Yeah, we told him first time we went on up in the Uintas, we said, hey, make sure you bring some duct tape, you know, thinking like wrap some around a bottle, and then you have, you know, a couple yards of duct tape if you get a blister or your something breaks. A whole roll of duct tape shows up.
duct tape,
Bro.
so
Yeah, hold on. You got a question.
So I was just gonna ask this question, but that's a good time for it now. You guys, when you go in as a group, there's some equipment like tents or duct tape or pots or pan, you know, jet boil, whatever, that can be shared equipment. You
Yeah.
guys coordinate your packing so that
Certainly.
you're all kind of sharing similar weights in your packs, or do you just
Yeah.
every man for himself?
and we'll get into that with sleep systems, but in several different areas.
We don't
of our
share
pack.
sleeping bags.
Well, yeah.
No, several different areas we do. We'll coordinate, especially if you have 4 guys. We'll kind of team up, and you know, 1 stove per 2 guys is usually, you know, a pretty good formula.
Stoves is a big one, you know, especially with like a jet boil. I mean, you can have 3 pots of jet boil, water boiled, rather than, you know, everyone doing their own little thing just as quick and just as much fuel. Each guy will probably pack his own stove for the jet boil thing, just so that we all have a fair share of fuel, but there's no reason to pack 3 jet boils if you're all going to camp in the same spot.
The trick is just good coordination, so you don't both leave thinking you both have a jet boil and neither of you do.
Or 3 rolls of duct tape.
Or, yeah, only 1 roll of duct tape per camp is good, or less. Yeah, so tents.
Did you have one?
So, my question, and I really, this is, you guys obviously do this a lot, but for those of us who have never gone backpacking 10 miles into the backcountry, like I do backcountry, but I don't go 10 miles. How do you scout, or is this just, you're counting on this area that you always go to, or are you going to new areas? What are you
Yes.
counting on when you do this? How do you pick your area?
It's both. So we have a couple core areas in core states that we're gonna apply for every year, because we've hunted it consistently. I do not have to go scout my Nevada mule deer archery hunt. I know relatively within one basin or the other where bucks are gonna be. I've hunted it 4 years now. My brother's hunted it 3 or 4 years on top of that. Like, we just know it.
So you stick to the same area?
Not always. So then the other half of that is, yes, so the kind of rule of thumb that we always choose, if we're gonna hunt a new to us unit, we have to do 1 scouting trip a summer. That's just like a really good, I mean, it'll blow your mind how much will change of your perception from Google Earth, with just boots on the ground. 1 weekend warrior trip is like, you don't look for deer. You're not looking for deer necessarily. If you see them, great. You're just looking at terrain, and it's like, as good as Google Earth is, we all know, you'd be like, oh yeah, this is gonna be the best. Like, I'm gonna be able to see this and this, and you zoom in on the in-view person, and you're like looking on Google Earth, like, oh, there's probably a buck right there, and you hike in there, and you're like, what
Way
the
steeper than you
frig,
thought
this
it
is
was.
way deeper, steeper, I can't see that, I can't see anything.
You can't hike over that.
Yeah, and so one new to us hunt a year is like the sweet spot. You know, it maybe 2, but just so we can get that 1 solid scouting trip. We have a lot of free time. Like, we're blue collar guys, like working, you know, 9 to 5s. We use all of our vacation on our hunts. And so it's like a 3-day weekend maybe to scout 1 extra new hunt to us a year.
Well, and on the areas that we do know, so our Nevada archery hunt, we'll usually every year while we're back there try to expand on, you know, the general area that we hunt. We might go a little further one direction, you know, every year. So we, you know, after 3 years in Nevada, we now know more about it, but yeah. we
This
won't-
year, we're gonna branch out into this basin or whatever, but we don't need to scout that to do that. We'll do it, during the week on the hunt, so.
So tents, one of the.
See what I'm
oh,
saying about the questions? It's great, but like, this is what we were gonna do last year, like,
Love it.
I love it.
And I love the llama hat, by the way.
Is that Bo? Is that
That Bo?
Wilderness Ridge?
We'll have to have.
Yeah.
Bo's
If
awesome.
you're in the northern half of the United States and you wanna rent llamas, Bo Beatty with Wilderness Ridge.
He's the guy.
Absolutely, 100%. So how you take your time off and go on that vacation to do your scouting trip, whether it's 5 hours, 10 hours, cross country, whatever it is, that picture that you have that you're gaining by being there, and then when you go there during hunting season and everybody's there, then what?
You just described my Colorado deer hunt this year. My wife and I made a weekend trip. We went in, we hiked a couple basins, we scouted it. We thought, okay, this isn't where we want to be. We want to be right up there.
And nobody was there.
No one's there. There's not even a trail there. We get hiked in. It wasn't opening morning. It was of the opening. This is another side note. It was opening morning of the muzzleloader hunt, which burned. You got to look out for that because we're archery hunting and the muzzleloader guys are in there cracking off smoke poles. But yeah, I mean. What do you do at that point? That's the one thing you can't scout is other hunters and when they're going to be there and stuff. But
Or Fish and Game putting everybody in that spot.
Part of that too, I mean, that's part of the reason we hunt the backcountry is, there's an amount of people that you can hunt and work with. If there's another guy in a big drainage, you can probably work with him or work around him. But that's part of the reason we try to hike back in there is so that we don't have to deal with that, but there's always that element of,
Well, I definitely have that element to get farther than
right?
98% of the people, because I have 2 llamas that are packing all my gear with me. But you still have that issue of going to a spot and you try to go deeper than 95% of the people are willing to go, but it seems like you always have.
it's funny. I think nowadays, like, I almost wonder if like there's a sweet spot, right? Like guys are either hunting within 2 miles of a road or 10 miles of a road.
Yeah.
And yeah, Matt, which one are you? 5.
Five.
And that's the point he's making is I think that 5 miles gets overlooked nowadays. It's like you're either hardcore and you're going 10 miles like us, or you're like, nah, I'm good. Like I'm gonna do my day hunt, right? And there's like this 4 to 7 mile range. It's like getting walked
Nobody's
over.
hit.
Yeah. I can think of multiple hunts that we go on and we just walk right past 5 miles. We don't even
Yep.
stop.
Maybe help this gentleman out, because I get, like you, a lot of time in the backcountry. I deal with this same question all the time as well. Anytime you deal with the DOW, they're gonna send everybody there, right? Which is, if you look, is mostly on a trail. Start looking for that stuff that is bushwhacked, that 1 mile or 2 away from the trail. You don't have to go 10 miles. 10 miles on a trail, there's gonna be lots of people there. 2 miles off a trail, 5 miles in, nobody there.
Something Mark always says, and he usually applies it to mule deer, but even with people when you're scouting, you gotta look at it and play chess, not checkers. If you're looking and it just looks too good to be true, it's like, oh yeah, this trail leads right to what looks like an awesome basin. You gotta know that the other 500 people with tags are gonna be seeing the same thing, so you gotta kinda look past and kinda think about, what everybody else is gonna be doing.
Do that with your units too when you're applying, right? So I can think of one state in particular. There's a general hunt. It's not but it takes quite a bit of points, and it's become like a hot buzz unit, right? And so one thing we'll do is like, okay, like there's this unit right here that's getting all this attention, and we know they're pulling 200-inch deer out of there. There's also this unit right here, and it's the same mountain range, and it's probably not quite as good of a hunt, but same mountain range, neighbor, sister units, like we'll just go hunt here instead of hunting there and just avoid the whole mess altogether. But we're not Jason Carter's after 220s or 230s. We're happy with 170s. And so to us, like, can you find a 170 on any given unit in Colorado? Yep. Nevada? Yep. Utah? Yep.
I just have 2 quick thoughts in reference to that. Like sometimes you can't avoid it. Doesn't matter how well you plan, you end up finding yourself in a situation with a lot of people. I've had had two different situations. 2016, when I was hunting in the same place as Mark Smith, we had people swimming around us, but we still got it done. Just by hunting an area where we knew there was deer, but people weren't getting over there soon enough to see them, and so it ended up working out. Last year, went to a different spot. I thought it was gonna be a good spot, ended up having a bunch of people, and we had to leave after the first day. I mean, sometimes it just doesn't work. Sometimes you can work around it.
There's a point where it's
Public
manageable,
land.
and there's a point where you're just,
Have 5 or 6
yeah.
plans, right? Don't go into any hunt in the backcountry thinking, this is gonna be where I hunt, because all kinds of things can happen. Fires, closures, outside of your control. Or you go in and there's 50 people 10 miles in.
Right.
Okay.
Back to tents. So to his point, when we're picking out a tent, one of the things you want to think about is, do you have a hunting buddy that you're going to be with all the time? Look at, we usually, by rule of thumb, if we know we're having 2 guys in a tent, we almost always buy a 3-man tent with 2 vestibules, just so you can fit all your gear and whatnot in there.
Good rule of thumb on tents too, like those man ratings, if you don't know this by now, like
In minus
cut it in
1.
half. Yeah,
Yeah.
cut it in half. Like if it's a 4-man tent, it's a 2-man tent comfortably. If it's a 6-man, it's a 3-man, honestly.
Especially with gear and whatnot. And so, floor versus floorless, we've used the Mega Tarp before. On certain hunt, it's great early season. We love it. There's a comfort zone though of having like the whole floor and the whole thing around you.
If you're a spider freak,
Don't do
don't do a floorless tent.
We've had the river run. A river runs through it in our, underneath our Mega Tarp in Nevada in August, so which is always fun.
So you guys just bought the 8-man teepee from Kafaro. Which one of you is going to carry it?
Arnie the llama.
Yeah.
That was kind of what I was going to lead into is like, obviously an 8-man tent, you guys are probably all planning on sleeping in it together.
Oh yeah, that thing
Yeah.
would fit
And then-
this room. It's so like that thing though, 14 pounds packed. And
Yeah.
so, but if you
With the stove.
with a stove, if you take in 3 of us, we can divvy that up. 14 pounds, like for a late season hunt with a stove, I can handle that if I'm packing on my back.
What is that stove? Is that a stainless or a titanium stove?
I don't think it's titanium. I think it's just
Stovepipe
stainless.
titanium and,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, it depends on the
Yeah.
And it folds up into, it's small. So
It'll be a good late season hunt, but it won't be something we use on every single hunt, for sure. We'll split a 3.5 pound tent typically, or, each of us bring in our own, 2-man tent that's 3 pounds, 3.5 pounds.
Are you guys doing anything to combat condensation on those floors?
Just buying a better tent.
I know it's coming though. We haven't, we just
know.
bought that floorless one and we haven't had it in the field.
Did you not get condensation in that? You guys used it?
I haven't got to play with it yet. Dustin's been hogging it. so-
That was in Nevada and we didn't have, it was early, like hot. We didn't have any problems with condensation, but maybe because it was so warm.
Yeah.
It just got, it's later in the season in Colorado when we were up higher, it gets colder, and then
Yeah.
warm during the day. It's, now we usually leave the front cracked open so we can get a little air through there. One thing that I will say is, if you get condensation and, and then a rainstorm comes in,
You're soaked.
ain't gonna get wet.
Sounds like you're talking from experience with that smile on your face, yeah.
Yeah, so are you guys planning on getting, they make a liner for that?
make a line for
They,
it.
yeah.
Kafaro does. If you're
Yeah.
So a little bit, my name's James Harsey. Aaron Snyder is one of my best friends, so I live next to Kafaro.
Perfect.
If you have Kafaro questions, I can answer them for you. If you're running a Kafaro, not to get specific, doesn't matter, Seek Outside, Kafaro, whatever. Biggest thing about condensation is lack of ventilation. So, I run a sawtooth. I do carry a liner because I don't like to get dripped on, but that's because I run my sawtooth all the way to the ground. I have a buddy, Aaron Kessie, he runs it 6-8 inches up off the ground.
How does that work with the nasty
Don't have any
winds?
condensation whatsoever.
But is that 6 inches up? Is that okay with nasty weather, hard wind blowing and stuff like that?
If you're worried about having a river run through it, you're pitching in the wrong place.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I've pitched my sawtooth in, you know, a flat spot where you can tell where water has gone through. I'm not gonna sit it there.
Right.
Maybe you go in and you haven't seen that, all of a sudden rain. I mean, I've had downpours and you're not gonna get it flowing through. Look at your ground, you know, see where the slope is to that,
Yeah.
right? You know, don't pitch it where it's gonna funnel.
Well, and we built up a little moat or whatever, you know, around it, a mound after that happened, and problem
Sure.
solved. You know,
Sure.
it wasn't a problem. It was just us
Adapt and
learning.
overcome.
Yep.
Right, in Nevada, we just, you know, weather was cherry every day, and then it wasn't, and then we had a river. But that was under a megatarp, that wasn't, we haven't, because we got that TP late this season and we've had it down in Arizona and Nevada, and just haven't seen much use yet, so.
A stove will combat it. For those that want to run a stove, you know, I mean, it's gonna, you know, you're still gonna end up with condensation in the morning because a stove is not like your typical wall tent stove. It's not designed to burn, you know, all night long. It's designed to burn for a few hours, you fall asleep, it's gonna be cold in the morning.
Yeah.
Have some wood ready, roll over, throw it in, light it up, go back, lay in your, till it warms up, and that condensation will be gone, you know, and you can deal with it that way.
Yeah, we pulled that tent out and slept in it, my wife and I, when we got it, and it was like, got down into the high 30s. And it was every 2 hours or so that wood would burn out, and it'd be cold. It's about a 2-hour burn rate with good size. I mean, as big logs as you could fit in the medium size.
So, your average guys, you know, that 3-man tent for a pair of hunters in the backcountry, I think, is probably the most like weight efficient while being comfortable. That's what we've, you know, ran when we're running everything on our pack. You can be, you know, 2.5 pounds pretty easily with a comfortable tent. I almost always try to go freestanding on a tent like that if you can. It usually costs you like 8 to 10 ounces depending on the brand, but you can go freestanding. You're not, you know, getting out of the tent in the middle of the storm trying to set it back up.
Explain freestanding.
So freestanding versus tension standing. The tent you see in the background there is a kuyu tent, and you can't just stake it to the ground and expect it to stand up. It needs guide out from the top. Those poles are gonna flip one way or the other on a tension standing tent.
So you've got to have dirt there to
Yeah.
drive a stake into,
Or tie it to trees.
or tie it to rock or tree or something. The tents, you know, you don't just put your poles down into the little eyelets or whatever, and it's just going to stand free. So depending on where you're hunting, you know, if you're going into rocky, nasty terrain on a sheep hunt, you might not want a tent that you have to, you know, be able to stake out like that.
So other than when you're taking llamas and teepee in, do you guys usually pack it up every day and break down your tents and haul them with you, or do you leave a base camp?
Depends on the hunt. With that teepee, we're actually planning on, you know, setting that up as a base camp, and then probably having enough stuff to bib out from the teepee and from the base camp if we want to go 3 or 4 or 5 miles. Most deer hunts, it seems like if we're into deer, we're just going to leave our tents there the whole time. But on an elk hunt, we'll usually...
Elk hunts are, you know how elk are. They're always moving, and so you got to be ready to move.
If we stay in the same camp on an elk hunt for 2 or 3 days at a time, it's because
It's good elk hunting.
Yeah, it's really good elk hunting. So that's a rarity, but normally we're breaking down tents. I like to try to find a tent that's easy to set up and tear down. Most of the tents nowadays are, but there are some that are tougher than others, especially in rocky terrain. And that's part of the reason I like a freestanding tent. They're gonna stand up better to the wind, almost always. But you pay a weight penalty for that. But if you're splitting it between 2 guys, it's not too bad. So, season ratings, we almost always use a 3-season tent, meaning, you know, that 4th season would be winter. Typically your 4-season tents are gonna have an insulated bottom. It adds a ton of weight to it, but the idea is you're putting it on snow and you need that.
Be aware too that that's all brands are not, all their rating systems are not created equal. you know, something that'll come to mind, like a 3-season Hilleberg is on a different level than a 3-season Eureka from Walmart, right? And I don't know tents well enough to know if there's like a regulated deal that they have to go through to be called a certain season tent. Maybe someone here does, but I do know that they're not created equal.
So, for example, if you read on a tent, we run a lot of Big Agnes stuff. We like it. It works, you know, it's great, I think, for the money. But if you read on a Hillenberg, if it says it's rated to 65 mile an hour, that means you can set that tent up in 65 mile an hour winds. What good's a tent in 65 mile an hour winds if you can't put it up? And very few tents are rated, you know, to that level. If my Big Agnes is set up already, it can take a pretty solid windstorm, but I've put it up in windy days and it's brutal. So, like Dustin said, there's no like FDA of, you know, there's this much sugar in a tent. It's just, you know, it's whatever they want to call it. And so you got to be buyers beware when you're looking at weights too. More and more brands are not counting stakes. They're not counting footprints. If you go ahead and order a tent online, never set it up and take it into the backcountry, there's a good chance with a lot of brands you're not going to get a footprint with it and you're going to torch the bottom of the tent immediately. And that 8 ounces isn't added into their 3.5 pound rating. So
They'll have a packed weight and they'll have a trail weight. And the trail weight is usually what you want to base off because that's like what we're going to take out
that's what's actually going
and
into
what's
the
actually
tent.
going into the backcountry, right? And that's like the bare minimum, the tent, the poles, the stakes. The footprint would not be included in that, like he said. So you just have to factor in a few more ounces for a footprint, but highly recommend running a footprint on everything, especially when you're in the backcountry. You just don't know what you're going to be dealing with.
Yeah. So, any more questions on tents? We kind of breeze through that, but
Not to beat Florida shoulders to death, but so did you get that tent for specifically for like late fall, 4th season type hunts? Would you use that during the summer?
it'll be a base camp tent. Certainly, we'll use it in August when we have 4 guys and we have 3 or 4 llamas with us. We're going to run that on our archery August deer hunts.
Just mostly because of the llamas. I mean, if you took pack llamas out of it, I don't think we'd pack that in. What do you need a stove for when it's, you know, 80 degrees in the backcountry Nevada in August? Like,
Right.
it's more for just the room, and we have the carrying capacity with a pack animal.
And we like being around each other. Like if Mark's in another tent, I can't BS with him. So it's more fun if all 4 of us are in the same tent.
Yeah, you'll think that on day 7 after we stink like garbage.
Ventilation.
Oh,
what he was talking
I
about.
should have packed my own tent.
Yeah, we'll leave that.
Yeah.
We'll leave the door open there. So sleeping pads, lots of options on the market. We usually do, you know, we go for the lightest ones, which are the least durable. Most backcountry gear, as you get lighter and more expensive, it doesn't hold up as long, tents included.
Is it worth the wait to get a longer one, like I'm 6'5", is it worth the wait to have full length,
I don't even think twice. I
It's-
do it.
It's a
no matter what?
It's a comfort thing.
6'4".
It adds so few ounces. I, for years, have ran just a medium or regular length, and just put, you know, I'm already packing like $1 gazillion worth of clothing back there, so I just put that under my feet.
Yeah, and that's the thing with your feet. Like, you got to realize that that's your insulation from the ground, you know. So when you're sleeping on a backcountry pad, you know, just because you have a 30-degree bag, if you weren't on top of that pad, you know, that loses your insulation rating. And so if your feet are hanging off the bottom and your feet are freezing every night, that's why. And so, you know, either way, you got to slide up or slide down and be able to pad that with something anyway. It's like,
You're talking about 3 or 4 ounces on most packs to go to an extra long, so it's usually worth it. I was silly when I bought mine and just haven't replaced it yet, and I tuck jackets and whatever's extra there. But so you've got a standard foam, and if you're hunting on a budget, those foam ones, they take up a ton of room, but they're very light. They insulate you pretty well from the ground, so they'll keep you warm enough, which I think is probably the most important thing.
you're talking like a Z-Light.
Yeah, like a Z-Light.
You've seen the ones that are like everyone's got when they first start hunting. And then
Like
the one that
30
everyone
bucks.
buys like later is like the blow up, like the Cadillac, right? Because there's only so many years you're gonna sleep on that little
It's a good way to save money though, because a good
$40.
a good big Agnes is, you know, 120 bucks or more, 180. And you can get just the foam one that'll insulate you just as well. But you gotta pack it on the outside of your pack. There's a ton of volume there. It's just never gonna fit inside your pack unless you have the biggest one out there, so.
I was gonna add something. I was doing some research the last couple months and kind of getting into the more like granola part of backpacking. And for those that don't know, I learned this. There's something called R value, which refers to sleeping pads and refers to how much they insulate you. I don't know, what a baseline is for what a good R value is, but I know it's something to look at when you're looking at insulation. Actually, have a measurement for that.
Just like on like your insulation in your house, right? You have R value in your walls. It's like around 3 to 4 to 5, I think, is kind of the range there.
So our value is simply, it's a weight to heat ratio, and they'll do it in jackets, they'll do it in sleeping pads, sleeping bags. When you start talking about synthetic versus down, and they say it's got a higher R value, it's because natural down is going to be warmer per ounce than synthetic. And so same deal, sleeping pads are the same way. The foam ones have a very high R value, they're just not very comfortable to sleep on. So you have to ask yourself, what can you put up with in the backcountry? If you're sleeping back there for 6 or 7 days and you're used to sleeping on a super comfy mattress and that's the only way you can sleep, you probably need a nicer pad. So like a self-inflating pad to me is probably the most comfortable, but it's the heaviest. And so there's always that sliding scale of comfort to weight, and you just have to find that balance for you. And if
I personally, my experience, I would skimp on my sleeping bag before I skimped on my sleeping pad.
and he's like the warmest blooded person on the planet. It hits like 40 degrees and he's shivering.
I mean, you can go get seriously, I'll come out of a tent like 45 degrees with every piece of First Light gear I own, like gloves, beanie, like balaclava and everything, just like.
It'll be 80 degrees in August and he's packing a 4-pound 0-degree bag back there
That's
with
all
a
I use.
waterproof liner.
You wanna save money too, that's another thing with sleep systems. I've ran one 0-degree bag for the last
6
6 years. And when it's August, I just unzip it, I leave it unzipped, and it's basically a quilt. I turn it so it's 90 degrees, and you get over it, but you're just sleeping right on your pad, right? You're just laying right on your pad. But it allows me to take one really nice sleeping bag everywhere I go and save, rather than buying a 30-degree and a 0-degree, just one way to save money.
But it's much heavier.
It is heavy.
Yeah.
That's the
It makes the
sacrifice. I'm
balance.
packing a 0-degree bag, couple pounds, 3 pounds.
Good segue into sleeping bags. Same ratings, R value. Typically, if it says it's a 30-degree bag and you expect it to be getting down to 30 degrees, it's probably not warm enough. Everybody's, I sleep hot, and so on the same hunt, I'll be in a 30-degree bag that Dustin's in a 0.
Most sleeping bags will have what's called a survival rating and a comfort rating.
Right.
30 degrees, when you see that, guess which one that is? It's the survival rating. Yeah, you're probably not going to die,
Right.
is what they're saying. You're probably not going to die if it hit 30 degrees. Yeah, that's seriously what it is. But the comfort rating is probably only 40, right? And so just dig into the tags on those and the labels, because there's a difference there. Comfort rating and a survival rating.
Yep.
So we're seeing the trend lately with a lot of companies, hunting-specific companies that are offering things that used to not exist, hunting-specific. For example, tents, sleeping bags, sleep systems in general. And to the hunting community, I feel like a lot of people are seeing this lightweight hunting and thinking, oh wow, this is new. But from what I understand is it's always existed, but not hunting-specific. What do you guys see? Should we really buy into the hunting-specific thing? Does it matter?
Does everybody know the term granola when I say it? Like if I refer to somebody as a granola, I use it as a term of endearment. Some of my best friends are granolas. The granola, people were climbing Everest in Gore-Tex that was better than our hunting clothing in 2005 in the 70s. Gore-Tex has been around forever. The government built it for the military. And you're right, the backcountry hunting community's grown. There's more and more companies building good gear for hunters. You've got to find a balance of, you know, are they adding features to this bag for hunters? So take our packs, for example. Gregorig, Osprey, there's been great pack companies forever that have been building really good internal frame packs. But what granolas don't do is they don't put 120 pounds of dead elk on their back. So a 3.5 or 3 pound pack isn't probably conducive to what we do. But in a tent, we're sleeping. And so what are they gonna do to a tent that's gonna make it better for hunting? Because in the pack world, they're gonna add like 3 pounds of weight or 4 pounds of weight to the pack. So it's comfortable when we have, you know, because a 128 pound pack isn't that much heavier than a 124 pound pack. But that extra frame and suspension is. So you just have to look at it, and a lot of what the hunting community is doing is good.
I think the only thing there is if you're a guy that just wants to support every brand that you buy supports, you know, maybe conservation or wildlife, or is just a hunting brand in general, you know, then that I think that becomes important. Thinking, you know, I'm going to buy the Kuiu sleeping bag instead of, you know, a Marmot or whatever. Because how much money is Marmot putting into hunting conservation? Go ahead.
Just want to add that buy from companies that are supporting hunting, because when you're buying from somebody that's not, they're supporting our enemies for sure. So North Face, a lot of those things, they're Sierra Club 100%, and they're dead set against putting us out of business. So that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, and one example of that that I'm personally gonna change, Corey, I haven't even told Corey this, but our Jetboil stoves, I know everyone is, you know, people are nodding their heads, like, it's become pretty apparent to me, and I was just ignorant to it, honestly, like, I didn't know that Jetboil, I don't think they're like anti-hunting, but a lot of the people that work there and kind of the company mantra is definitely not hunting friendly, you know, and so that'll be one change. You know, I don't make a lot of changes to my gear anymore because it's just, I just need to replace it when it runs out, but that's one that I'll probably find a different
What are you
stove.
gonna go to?
I don't know yet.
MSR makes some good options.
The wind burner too.
Wind burner, that, I've heard that one, couple podcasts.
Okay, so random question, like to get like big scope and everything. So I'm in the process right now of buying a new pack. What, especially with car backcountry packs, like what you guys are into, what are the big things that you look for?
Size, and
So,
how
let's-
the main.
Maybe. Let's see what my next slide was. Let's hope it's at, oh, there it is. Perfect. We'll go back to boots.
Real quick, let me touch, we'll come right back, how do you go back? Just hit back there. Before we step away from sleeping bags.
I was off the slide, guys, I'm sorry.
Terrible. We're almost there. Decision you gotta make, and it's an important one with sleeping bags, is synthetic versus natural. Synthetic has the highest R value, so it's the warmest for the weight. But up until recently, it's done awful when it got wet. It'll clump up, it doesn't hold its insulation value when it is wet, and that's the big, you know, you hear a lot about Primaloft, there's a lot of other synthetic downs that basically shed water, it won't take water in. And so you have to decide, you know, is my bag ever gonna get wet, or if you get soaked and you come back and all you have is this little tent, and you're obviously gonna strip your boots, you're gonna get down in your skivvies, but you're still wet, you probably don't have a towel back there. Is that extra pound of weight worth being able to just crawl into your bag soaking wet? And you're seeing that back to the hunting question. Most your hunting specific sleeping bags are a synthetic down, just because if it's gonna rain outside, granolas are just gonna stay in their tent, but for the most part. I mean, in all reality, where we're gonna chase elk whether it's gonna rain or not that day. So the chances of it getting wet or it raining in your teepee, you know, if you're 10 miles deep and you got a soaking wet sleeping bag and it's 25 degrees at night, you're probably gonna bomb to your truck or build a fire or something. So just something to think about when you're choosing a sleeping bag.
I'll touch on boots real quick. We'll get to your pack question. Yeah, go ahead.
So, a little bit more on exactly what you're
Syn-
I'm trying to buy another bag since I took it cold.
Synthetic's gonna do much better when it gets cold, or when it gets wet. There's like no question. So it depends a little bit on the hunt. If I'm doing an archery hunt in August, I'm probably gonna pack a 30-degree down bag myself, because I know I sleep well in it. The chances of it getting wet on that hunt are much slimmer than an elk hunt in Colorado or in the Uintas that I know it's gonna rain every single day, and then I'm gonna be stuck in the rain. So there is a little bit of an issue in the granola world that most of your high-end sleeping bags are down. And that goes back to the hunting question, is there's some hunting companies that realize that, and so they're building really, really nice synthetic sleeping bags. And Snyder talks about that on his podcast, I think on his elk hunt, where, you know, he just bombed in, clothes and all, into a synthetic bag, and he knows that heat's gonna push all that out, and his tent's breathable enough, and his bag's breathable enough. He knows he can get away with that. If I do that in a down bag, I'm gonna wake up like an ice cube.
A wet
Yeah,
bag.
it's a non-option. You gotta do something else. So
that 0-degree bag that I run, it's down, but it's a membrane model, and it's got I don't even know if they make these anymore, but it's got a waterproof, water resistant layer that goes around the whole bag. And like, I can't tell you how many times, because of condensation, because of rain, because a bear smashes our tent, and we come back and it was pouring rain and my bag's just exposed. There's so many times where my bag gets wet, but I'm still able to sleep in it, but only because it's got that, if it was just a straight up down bag that didn't have a membrane waterproof layer around it, like I would have been in real trouble, I think.
The most expensive $900 gallon bag is not necessarily the best option.
not if it's gonna get
You
wet.
just got, it's like, the most expensive lightweight tents are gonna rip easier than some of the other tents. I mean, that's just, the lighter stuff gets, the more fragile it is typically,
To maybe help you out here, there's a thought pattern. What's more important to you, saving weight or being warm? Because if you're saving weight, you want to go down. It's always like this, but warm is always going to be with synthetic. If you have a chance of getting wet, don't even question it. Go synthetic.
Yeah.
The extra ounces is worth your life. Too many people chase the rabbit down the hole with going ultralight.
Yeah.
And don't think about it. And for somebody that's buying a bag, don't buy a bag and take it out into the woods without testing it. When you buy a bag, go sleep outside, get it wet, find out before it happens in a controlled environment. Too many people, I've had to help rescue too many people out of the backcountry that got wet in a down bag and didn't know that down is horrible when it gets wet.
My bag was awesome, but it wasn't.
Right.
So if you go and talk to Taysom Whitaker in Outdoor Vitals, it's not ultralight stuff, but he's done YouTube videos where he actually takes his down bag, he's out of Cedar City, he dunks it in the water, lets it sit in there for several hours, pulls out and sleeps in his backyard in it at 40 degrees, and he's just in his skivvies. But go and talk to him about it. He's done tons of research, he's built really good bags that are what you're looking for. I'm not saying you necessarily have to go buy from him, but he's got really good advice that will help you make a decision.
It's awesome. So I love these groups because I didn't know that. I didn't know some of this stuff. This is perfect. That's what I was saying at the beginning. We don't know. We don't have all the answers.
Well, also the benefit of that is even if your bag doesn't get wet, if you go out and you get wet, if you have like merino clothes, you get back in that synthetic bag and it will help dry all that out.
Yep, that merino will be dry before you know it. Okay, we got to move on to boots. Obvious first thing, high boot versus mid boot versus low boot. Just ankle support. I'm a guy. For years, I was running a super high boot. I was a wildland firefighter, so I was used to like a high, snakes or whites. That were coming high, and so I would run a high boot on every single hunt. I ran some mid boots like that in Nevada. Right there is what I run now. And that's like a mid boot, and I don't have any problems with it. There's guys out there running low boots for backcountry stuff. That's not for me. I have 2 weak ankles, and you're never walking on flat ground. It seems like. I would lean towards a high or a mid. Always looking for a waterproof, Gore-Tex or what's some of those other ones that some of those other brands use.
Wintex or
Wintex.
any sort of membrane that's gonna be breathable.
Some sort of waterproof, breathable membrane. Those will break down over time.
Yeah.
Don't think that just because you bought a Gore-Tex boot that 7 years from now it's not going to start leaking. It's theoretically like it's nice, but you can't have something that breathes super well and is waterproof for very long. Think about it. So, you know, not to that you expect your boots to leak in 1 year, but after, you know, good use of time.
How they build that boot around the Gore-Tex is really important. Your better brands are always going to build it from the last up. And when you do that, in theory, when you start abusing your boot, it's not going to rip as soon as, say, a $150 or $200 boot with Gore-Tex in it. And that's just the construction of the boot. That's why you pay what you do for good boots. So.
Insulation, like thin slit, just understand it, know what type of hunt you're going on, what type of foot you have. I seem to be able to run an insulated boot on an early season. I don't have a problem with having a little warmer boot. Women especially are going to lean more towards the 400 insulate boot for an early season hunt or something like that. Guys typically going to be the other way where they can go longer with an uninsulated boot. Just gonna, I guess, breathe easier. Foot's not gonna sweat, not gonna get the moisture in there. You're less apt to get blisters if your feet aren't sweating. So the last thing there, the flexible miles, flexible for miles and stiff enough for the mountains. So this is just a theory that I've kind of built over years. When we first started doing this, we gravitated towards the stiffest, generally stiffest boot that you could find, right? And there's a specific brand that I'm thinking of, and we ran those. I ran those for quite a while, and I kept getting blisters. And I thought, I just need to break this boot in. I need to break it in, and it didn't matter. It didn't matter how many. And I worked retail long enough, selling those same boots to see a pattern of about, it was ballpark 50%. And what I realized, so I switched boots. I switched to a Crispy. Crispy's not the stiffest boot on the market. I'd say they're still generally a stiff boot, but you can flex a sole, especially out in the toe. You can flex the front end of a Crispy boot for the most part. And the problem is we thought that because we were hunting the backcountry with these up, down hills, that we had to have these super stiff sheep boots. Well, the problem wasn't that, it was the 10-mile hike getting in. Does that make sense? And so when you're putting on that many miles on relatively flat ground, I don't need a sheep boot for that. And all I'm doing to my back of my heel is that boot isn't giving way every time I take a step for 10 miles, and I was getting in there with blisters. And so we switched to a little bit, yeah, go ahead.
You ever run trail running shoes?
My brother does. He's not here, but he does. He runs like a Solomon, especially early season scouting. Especially if you're just going on like a day hunt. Mark talked in his seminar about having the right, tread for the right job. I mean, at some point, if I'm going to have a 100+ pound pack on my back, I need the stability and the load bearing system that a Crispy or a Kennebec or whatever these boots are. But if the situation's right, yeah, I'll go up in my gym shoes. For a one-day scouting trip. I mean, my brother will do these trail camera routes where he's covering 16 miles in a day, and he's doing it just in Solomons. He's got 10 pounds in his back, and he's just covering ground. So I would never do that on a hunt where I'm packing 50 pounds in and then doing up down, and then packing out a 100-pound buck. I wouldn't do that.
I would also add to that and just say, when I started learning Solomon's hunting, I developed plantar fasciitis in the arch of my foot. And Aaron Snyder recently talked about this as well on Kafaru Cast. But and not saying it's a bad, those types of shoes are a bad thing, but just understand a mid to really stiff boot can help you if you, like me, get sore feet or have foot problems like that. You might want to gravitate more to the stiffer boot. And know that your foot has to break into the boot. That's not necessarily the boot has to break in.
Yeah.
So it's just, keep that in mind.
Tough for me to stand up here and say, gotta wear crispy boots, because, I mean, as many people as there are in here, there's different feet, and it's just, it's crazy. It's audacity for me to sit up here and say, you gotta wear a crispy boot, you gotta wear Kennetrek, you gotta wear this. I'm telling you, crispy boots work for me. I've experienced it with boots that I had problems with, and I've ran Crispies long enough now that I've had literally zero blisters. And so that's been my experience. Take that for what it's worth.
How long is that?
I haven't ran a crispy, but do you find like they're more like a mid stiffness? Are they like kind of still pretty stiff?
So they're AB, they call it like ABSS. One of the things that I love about it is it's not just like a steel shank going down it. There's like a whole design around it, but what it means is it's gonna flex where you want it to flex.
In the toe.
In the toe where your foot naturally flexes, but then when you're side hilling, it's stiff. And you're seeing that in more and more boots. That's why they're comfortable in the long haul on like flat ground, but you can still side hill with weight. And it's a good design. I've ran them for 5 years. To answer his question, I put a lot of miles on my boots. I got 3 years out of my first pair.
If we're really, like, if we have two just like hard years where we've got like 4 backcountry hunts of like 10 miles each, and we're just hammering them, and there's bad weather, and it's wet, and it's mud, and it's hot, and then it's dry, and then it's wet. 2 years on a pair of Crispies, and it's time. The tread's fine, but you know, the seams. I really like these all leather boots with the rand all the way around them. That's been the most indestructible as far as I've seen. Anytime there's a seam, a stitch, it's just more apt to go out on a boot. That's just fact.
And it's really hard to get rubber to stay on leather for any company. It's just to get that to adhere and stay perfectly. I've got shoe goo at home. I'm probably like anytime I see just a little bit of rubber starting to peel, I hit it with shoe goo, reapply it. It's just on an actual rubber boot or a leather boot with rubber, it's impossible to get it. A lot of people apply heat when they're trying to dry it out. Heat, fire, that's like the worst thing you can do for your boots.
You see a guy have a Ranger fire going, and his boots are just right off to the side trying to dry it out.
Yeah, there's nothing you
Your
can
boots
do.
are gonna shrink. You're gonna melt out. I mean, it's just bad news.
It's like running your car without oil in it. It's just not good for it. So.
Well, and one quick thing with boots, if you're gonna go and spend that kind of money on a nice pair of boots, you might as well service them.
Yeah.
You know, you gotta
take care of them.
Take care
just
of
like
them, put
anything.
LP
Wash
on them.
Get the.
Throw some wax.
You got to be careful with open-offs on some stuff. Some of that'll chew through the glue.
Yeah.
So I always read whatever boot you're getting. Read the manufacturers. I usually just buy their leather protector because it's not going to destroy your boot.
I have another quick question about the safer boots for flatlanders. We're from Louisiana, so hiking the mountains kills my calves and my feet in general. You find the safer boot gives you a little more like support in your legs as a whole?
Your ankles, definitely. I'm the opposite of Dustin. I buy the tallest boot I can. I had an accident in Idaho after packing out a bull, and I truly think that having a tall boot saved me from breaking my ankle. It still blew up in a matter of minutes. I just laced that boot up and got out of there. But had I had like cross trainers or a low top boot on, I don't know if a helicopter would have come and got me, but yeah, I like a high top boot. I figure we're doing, we got weight on our back, we're hiking steep stuff, there's always rocks and stuff. You're protecting your ankles with that, and it is going to create a little more support. So
somebody mentioned socks.
Yeah,
liner.
Liner, do you?
Yeah,
do
so
liners and wool and
yeah, so that was one trick that I figured out. I don't know, how much it's helped, but it was about the time I switched to Crispies. Maybe that's it. Maybe it wasn't, but
I'll just throw this in there, a liner. So I did 8 years in the Army, and after doing a bunch of rough marches and stuff like that, one of the guys one of the sergeants I was with told me, he's like, socks are your biggest thing. So I always took nylon socks, like our dress socks, and put them underneath my regular green socks, and that got rid of most of my blisters, and helped with a lot of the water.
yeah, so they'll sell them at like Sportsman's. It's a super, super thin. It's like your grandpa's old dress socks, right? Super thin, synthetic sock. And that goes, what's that? Smart Wool makes one? Okay. And then that'll go in between like an actual wool sock, right? And so the liner is eliminating the friction, basically. It's taking the brunt of some of the friction. And then the advantage of a wool sock is wool naturally will suck that moisture out of your foot and dissipate it, and then they dry quick. And so that's a pretty deadly combination when you're eliminating friction and then you're sucking heat out. Or you're sucking moisture out. That's like the two reasons that you get a blister, is friction and moisture. And then run a good boot on top of that that fits. And I doubt you have a lot
How much
of
time,
problems.
Mark? Yeah.
We're the last ones. We end whatever.
Okay.
Last one, take it to, ain't nobody right here.
Oh, sorry. Right here. Yeah. Ladies first.
What are your thoughts about trekking poles? Are they worth the wait?
Trekking poles, yes. You put weight on your back. I'm the only stubborn one that doesn't own any. But it seems like every time we kill something, then I'm like stealing one from them. And
Wait till your knees hurt.
yeah, so Jason, who,
A number that I heard with trekking poles is roughly like 30% of energy that you're saving by putting that into your arms. And 30%, where they came up with that number, I have no idea. How you even calculate that, I don't know. But having ran it, I'm not going to put a number on it, but I would agree with that generally.
you get in deadfall and have a bunch of weight on your back, th're worth their weight in gold just for
Across the
stability.
water.
And
Stability,
yeah.
120-pound pack on after you've killed something. Like we don't have time for stories, but yeah, we love trekking poles.
I'm getting some this year.
I want to segue into packs real quick, so I know time's
Thank you.
getting short. What I'm really looking to hear is being somewhat familiar with backpacking.
Yep.
What are some of the features you look for in packs specifically for hunting as opposed to just a generic backpacking pack?
Something I can put Dustin in and pack him around. Now, good straps, like heavy duty, throw some, if you're at a sporting goods store trying them on, throw some like trophy rocks or whatever they have in there and see how it actually rides with 80 or 100 pounds, because realistically, realistically that's what, so you gotta have just great suspension. If it's an 8-pound pack, guys get all caught up on weight, and boot weight and pack weight doesn't bother me at all, just because I know that extra 3 pounds is going into my comfort when have a bunch of dead stuff on my back.
Yeah. When you're on the expo floor and they're saying, "Oh, this is a 4-pound pack," and the other guys are making a 7-pound pack. 4 pounds to 7 pounds sounds astronomical. It's almost double. That's probably what they're saying, right? Well, when you put 100 pounds of boned out meat in there, you know what the difference between 100 and 103 pounds is? You won't even notice it. It doesn't matter. I'll go for the pack that's a little heavier and it can handle a load and is super comfortable with 100 pounds in it, over the pack that's shaving a little weight, trying to be super lightweight on the expo floor, just so that they look like they're running a lighter pack. That's just my, we haven't ran packs that were lightweight, blew out stays, and then once you have a blowout on a pack, that your pack doesn't work anymore,
It's critical.
you're screwed.
The other feature that you gotta have, in my opinion, is you gotta have it separate from your frame to put a dead animal in there. You want that real dense, heavy weight as close to that frame and as high as possible.
And away from your sleeping bag, clothes.
Yeah,
tent,
so
all that kind of
our
stuff.
packs, you can keep all your gear in the main compartment, throw the dead animal in between it.
The word is a meat shelf is kind of the buzzword. Like you're looking for a meat shelf. Kafarus that we run, they don't have a dedicated meat shelf. They're coming out with one. Aaron said it was because of us. I think he was just pandering to us, but he said it was because he saw us running a 22 mag, and we just decided that we could separate the 22 mag from the frame and leave the bottom straps on and just make our own meat shelf. You know what I'm saying? And
So you're putting the meat between the frame and
inside of
itself.
game bags, and then we're putting it right. We're separating the bag from the frame,
Right.
and then sucking it back in as tight as you can possibly get it right up against your back. That's just 101 of packing a pack. Is you want all your heavy stuff tight up against your back as much as you can. You don't want it out of the back of the pack. The last thing I'll say with packs, before any of this, is I would find a pack that you can custom fit to you. The days are gone of where you just have to go in and everyone has to buy a one-size-fits-all pack. That's crazy. That's like saying you're gonna buy a one-size-fits-all boot, right? It's like, how many different torso sizes do we have in here and waist sizes? Like, I'm an extra large torso, but I'm a medium belt, you know? And you used to not be able to get that. You just had to find a brand that happened to have a, okay, that's a fat joke. No, but find these packs nowadays. You should be able to customize the torso, the belt, the straps, everything. The last thing is the load lifters. So a pack, and I don't have a good picture, but a good pack will have what's called load lifters. And that's not your shoulder straps, but it'll connect to your shoulder straps. And it goes to usually goes to the frame of the pack back here, right? A lot of packs will have them, but not all packs, they're actually effective. And the way that you tell if the load lifter is going to be effective is the angle or the degree that it angles back to your frame, right? And so the problem is if you put a pack on and the load lifter is level with the ground, when you go to cinch those load lifters down, it's not lifting any sort of load. It's doing nothing. But once it hits that 45-degree angle, I can actually cinch that down and it'll pick that weight up and pull it off of my shoulders and press it against my chest, and then it's on my chest, not my shoulders and my waist. Critical when you're packing 80, 90, 100 pounds.
It's a big part of pack fit.
That's what I was gonna touch on, real quick. You have what features you're looking for. Load lifters is by far what I feel is the number one. It's gotta be a 40-degree, not a 45. At 40-degree angle, what everybody wants to do with a pack, especially when you start loading weight on it, they feel is they gotta cinch down their shoulder straps. Well, what's that doing? That's putting all the weight on your shoulders. A pack is absolutely worthless if you're carrying the weight on your shoulders. In order for a pack to be efficient in the backcountry anywhere, carrying this kind of weight, you want to be able to transfer that weight to your hips. Why? Because your legs are your strongest muscles to carry that out. If you're putting that weight on your hips, you're using your glutes and your thighs, not your shoulders. If you start using your shoulders,
You'll break down real quick.
You're worthless. So load lifters will transfer that weight and put it where it needs to be on your hips. So number one.
Once again, there's more slides. You guys can see them. Like clothing, food. We're gonna talk. I know food's a hot button. Like everyone loves to talk about food. Let's talk about it. I don't have anywhere to go. What do you guys want to know?
Do you guys dehydrate your own foods?
No, I got so many things going on, and there's other companies that do it for me. Like I'm willing to pay the $5 or $10 to have them do it. You know what I'm saying? Like it's like I want to reload all my guns, but like man, like I'm trying to tune a bow, I'm trying to reload my bullet. Like it's just one more thing that I can't do.
Does the sodium bother you, like getting it?
I like the sodium when you're pushing, and call me crazy, you need the electrolytes. You start pumping. I try to drink as much as I can in the backcountry, and if you don't have the sodium, which your body's pushing out, you need some of that. There's an extra point, but as long as you're pounding water, that sodium needs to be in your body to hold the water in your body to make it work.
Okay, so as far as food go, I got good breakfast, I got good lunches, normally try to take sandwiches, 3 or 4 days in.
Not happening.
What do you guys pack for lunches?
We all three do it a little differently. I do a lot of granola bars all day long and fruit snacks, and I eat a good breakfast.
Peanut butter bagel.
Peanut butter and bacon is lightest weight and a lot of calories.
If you want peanut butter and jelly, you go to Walmart and get their little jelly packets ahead of time. My other favorite thing is you go through, I've done this before, you go through KFC, and this is what you do, you bring like $1 with you. You say, I'd like 2 biscuits. You say, well, what, you just want 2 biscuits? I say, yeah. And can I get 30 packets of honey with that? And they make those little honey packets. It's straight sugar, but who cares back there, right? Those little honey packets on anything, peanut butter and bagel or whatever you got.
What are those little like tuna things you and Jason?
Yeah, those little, pre-made tuna. They come with crackers, and it's not the most weight efficient. Another thing that I'll do is I'll get mac and cheese. Like your kids have like instant mac and cheese, right? The little guy in the back with the question, he knows what I'm talking about. You eat instant mac and cheese all the time, huh? And what I do though is I pull out the container that it comes in, that's a microwave safe container, I just take that and dump all the contents into a plastic Ziploc bag, and then I just put that and just boil it and put it in my thing. I mean, mac and cheese in the backcountry, like I'll take 2 servings because they're for kids, and put 2, maybe 3 in there. Packs of potatoes, those instant potatoes. You can cook those right in the bag. You don't want to get the water like hot, but if you just get it warm, you can just melt it in there. What's your question, bud? My favorite animal? Man, have you ever heard of elk bugle? Yeah?
It's the best.
Have you ever been like this close to elk bugling when he's like right in your face and he's got these big old like 6-point antlers and he's just like,
Come to
well,
whip your butt.
as soon as you do, you'll know why elk's my favorite animal to hunt.
We argue that all the time. Jason's a mule deer guy, but
But he's not here to defend himself.
Yep, he's yeah. So elk is what all of Team Backcountry thinks is the best.
So we need to get to. Should we get this little guy all that protein? You need to bulk up, man.
You like flat bills?
Yeah.
Question?
Yeah. Going back to your ankle that got injured, I have a buddy last year, he killed an elk, hiked it out to his four-wheeler rolled over, broke his leg in the backcountry, well, as far as he could get back in there. Do you guys have a plan for like safety, or what do you do in case of an emergency?
In pairs, I mean, we bomb out. They make the little spot locator. I think that's like the best thing for the money out there. It's like $100 and then $100 subscription. You could literally, in that scenario, hit SOS. But yeah, I've been in the backcountry where, you know, I had a partner there, so he could have gone and got help. Most of the places we hunt don't have phone service.
So this was supposed to be a segue into our seminar tomorrow's on utilizing pack animals. That's Arnie. This is Malcolm in the left, and he's passed, rest in peace, and that's Aaron in the back. We're going to talk about llamas tomorrow. Hold on, before we'll do questions all day. So we gave away most of like the hats and the t-shirts. We've got some stuff here that's like stuff I don't even have access to some of this stuff right yet. So it's so big that I think it's worth just doing a little favor to these companies that are giving us this stuff by simply following their social media page. And so what we're going to do, the only way we could think of to do that is we're going to have you guys, if you can go on the floor, the expo floor, or take a picture of this seminar right now or whatever, post it on your social media and just hashtag Team Backcountry. And what that's going to do, yes, it gets us a little bit of publicity, but it really just centralizes where we can go find you because we're giving you credit for being here, and then we're going to cross-check and see. We can go to Mountain Ops page and we can search who's following them. So we'll go search all of your posts from hashtag Team Backcountry on Instagram. And so what's your username, for example? Just Samson. He's going to post up and we're going to see, oh, hashtag Team Backcountry, there's his picture. Then we're going to go and we're going to search his name real quick on all of those pages. And so for every one of these pages that you're following, you'll get another name in the hat. To give you an idea of some of the stuff that we're giving away, Crispy's going to give you a pair of boots.
Any boot
that you want from Crispy, they're going to give you a pair for free.
Sunto watch.
A Sunto Traverse Alpha. Google how much this is worth, and then you'll probably go real quick and start following these companies. A Mountain Ops, like an elk shape combo, the whole combo.
Jacket whose name I can't pronounce.
Oh, this is just an example. No, the Uncompadre.
Yeah, I can't pronounce that.
And they'll switch the size out for this too. If your size doesn't work, we'll figure it out. I think that's it. But that's that's the meat and potatoes of some of the gear that we use. So hashtag Team Backcountry. That's how we're going to find you in the first place, that you were here. It doesn't have to be a picture of this, picture of us out on the floor of our booth. I don't care what you take a picture of. Just hashtag Team Backcountry in your post. And then we're going to cross-reference and kind of check and see if you're following these companies. And then you'll get that many names in the hat. So, see, Matt, this is the guy, he knows. He's literally doing a seminar on like social media or a picture taken with your iPhone and stuff like that. So, okay, you got that out of the way now. Any more questions?
Just a quick one about first aid kits. What do you have in it? With weight being an issue.
I think that I've gotten away with that for a long time. I'm a minimalist in that. I'm like the bare essentials, and just stuff that really isn't going to get me out of a jam anyway. Like I carry Tylenol and a couple Band-Aids and some sleep pills just in case, like I just need to get to sleep on a night or something like that.
I've got a whole kit that I keep in my bag at all times in case Dustin goes down. It's got, your wraps. It's got, I think burn stuff. It's got.
Is it like one of those kits that you buy?
It's just a generic kit, and then
Shields, Cabela's, they're gonna sell to me that it just becomes a weight. It's like, what are the chances of something really going wrong compared to do I really want to pack a 17-ounce first aid kit into the backcountry? I don't know. Maybe
I keep a quick clot with me.
I can touch on that a little
Quick clot would be
a little bit. So my personal philosophy is ounces equals pounds, pounds equals pain. So a lot of people want to cut things, but if you're 8-9 miles and you take a broadhead to your femoral artery, your arm. I personally carry one tourniquet. I carry 0 Band-Aids. I have other things. I've got tension tape. I've got duct tape. I've got things that can cover some of that stuff. I'm looking to make sure that one, I can take care of myself if I have major trauma. Keep that to a minimum. Secondly, am I trying to relieve altitude sickness? That's a real possibility. If you're allergic to something, I carry that stuff. Outside of that, as far as your cuts, your scrapes, stuff like that, I get rid of that stuff personally because, sorry women, my saying is man up, okay? Man up. You don't need a Band-Aid. I mean, you get a cut, you're not going to bleed to death. But if you cut so I carry a tourniquet, I carry some Advil pain reliever, bee sting stuff because I'm allergic to bees.
My wife's laughing back there. I always joke with her, and I'm kind of joking, but I'm kind of not. I always joke that when I go, if I go in the backcountry, that's ideal. When I die, I want to die. And so that's just kind of I don't have half of that stuff because I'm just you know what? If I cut my, I understand what you're saying, but if I cut my femoral artery with a broadhead, something epic already went down, probably to get to that point.
I bring it with, because
and
good hunting buddies are hard to find. So I've got it all.
Yeah.
If he goes down.
What's that? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. What did I say?
That was putting my leg. Sorry.
Oh yeah. It's in your leg.
I was like this.
That's what I'm saying.
See that?
If I'm fighting a bear off and I get I don't know, but if I end up dying in the backcountry.
If you go over a log and you trip, it's not hard to puncture. You have a stick, you can puncture your femoral artery.
It's a dangerous place, don't mistake that. I don't take it lightly. I just kind of know myself, and I feel like I'm a pretty cautionary person as I just step and move, and that there's things that are just out of your control, that you need to plan for. But
I want to ask a question for you guys to think about tonight, so you can tell me tomorrow in your seminar at what, 9, 10? 10 o'clock?
Yes is my answer.
No, you may not want to answer this. I want to know how you guys feel, since we're talking about llamas tomorrow, and these new bikes coming out. So think about that.
I'll have a good answer
like
tomorrow.
electric bikes and stuff like that.
I was a bike mechanic for 5 years, so I'll have a good answer for you tomorrow.
One thing I would say about altitude sickness, us coming from Louisiana, overnight to Colorado and then going up here, I started using this stuff, Altitude RX, you get it from Amazon, take it twice a day, you start the day before you're going to get into high altitude. Pretty much cuts out all your altitude sickness.
That's one thing too, I've had zero problem with altitude. Cross my fingers, I've never experienced it or really had a problem.
Negative sea level.
I mean, I'm down at 1,500, home, I'm fairly low. Anyway.
Biggest thing you do
That goes tenfold for everything.
Yeah.
Water's everything in the backcountry. Gotta have it.
Thank you guys so much for being here. We not only have a booth out there. Please come by, BS with us about backcountry hunting or gear or whatever, pack llamas, whatever you want. Really appreciate you guys coming and supporting us. Thank you.